Traverse City Downtown Development Authority meeting to order. Let's please start off with roll call. Liz, can you help us?
Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Present.
Here.
Here.
Thank you. Next on the item is review and approval of our agenda. Can I get a motion from someone to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. I'll support.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Thank you, Mr. Jobran. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. First item is public comment. We always have two public comment sessions, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end of the meeting. Does anyone wish to make a public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to item 5, which is the consent calendar. So the purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one DDA board motion without discussion. Any member of the DDA board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the DDA board, and such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single DDA board action adopting the consent calendar. Item A, consideration of approving the minutes from the May 16th, 2025 DDA regular board meeting. Approval is recommended. Item B, consideration of approving the May 2025 financial reports and distributions for the DDA General, Old Town TIF, TIF 97, and the Arts Commission. Approval recommended. Does anyone on the board wish to remove any of the items from the consent calendar? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
So we have a motion by Mayor Shamro, second by Mr. McMillan. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are no items removed from the consent calendar, so we'll move on to number 7, which is the special order of business, the informational biannual report to the community.
Mr. Chair, if I may suggest, the special order of business is really to talk about the DDA budget, so I think we can just kind of combine that with old business A, because we're kind of talking about the same things. So, as you can see in your memo, this budget has been discussed and talked about by this board and others for quite some time. The City Commission approved our budget on June 2nd, and this is now our opportunity to confirm that approval. Not much has changed since the last time we talked. The only thing that's different and reflected in your packet is now that the retail incubator is not at a cost that we had anticipated for the entire year, we essentially took the remaining funds from that line item and reallocated that to stormwater management with the city. And we are actively working with the city to identify in what direction or what projects those specific stormwater funds would be allocated for. The city is working through our MS4 program. They've identified a few projects. We also have a stormwater management plan or stormwater management identification plan that the DDA board worked on and approved 2018 that has some suggestions on steps that we could take as a body to move forward stormwater. So the exact allocation of where those dollars are going to go for this fiscal year is still to be determined, but I think there's plenty of work to do for stormwater. In addition to the stormwater line item we already have for Lot B, which is part of the reconstruction of that entire project. So that is the only significant change based on our last conversation. I'm happy to answer any questions or highlight any other items that this board sees necessary. But this would be the final approval, and then that's kind of the last step. So.
Any questions? So the other thing I wanted to bring up in that process is when we were reviewing sort of the budget items with some of the city commissioners, the 2018 TIF stormwater plan was brought up. At that particular time, I was not even aware that that plan existed. So I received a copy of the plan. It has some, I think, some very interesting information there on things potentially that the DDA and/or private entities could do to improve stormwater quality in the downtown area. So Harry, I just would like you to forward a copy of that plan to all board members to make sure they have a copy of that. It's actually not that bad reading, but just a glance over it, but just to get an idea of some of the things that you could potentially do for stormwater management. So with that, if no further questions, do I have a motion? And the motion would be what is on page 27 of your packet.
The only thing I just want to note, if you look at the colored chart that we put together of the TIF budget and the Old Town budget, you see there's like a small discrepancy in that, the total number of that with the total number of the budget. It's just because the city likes to round down. So you'll notice that each of those budgets is about $28 difference, and that's just because that's the city process. So that's why you might see that discrepancy between, again, those two color charts and then the final budget number.
Don't see,
Page
For those-
27, there is a recommended motion.
I'm on the online here, so I gotta figure out page numbers. Could you read it and I will make the motion? So while I'm
Sure.
looking?
So the recommended motion is that the DDA Board of Directors hereby approve the 2025-2026 budget as follows. The Downtown Development Authority, the general fund, $2,600,900. The TIF 97 fund, $6,963,400.
983.
83. Sorry, I just
Thank
found
you.
it.
Yeah, I'll repeat that again, $6,983,400. And the Old Town TIF Fund, $729,200.
I'll make that motion. Thank you for that. I finally found it at the very, very, very bottom.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And I just wanted to ask, and I appreciate that the stormwater, now that it's been seconded for comments, that the stormwater plan's being forwarded to the board so that we all have that. I've been on the commission since I think the year after I was elected was the SAW grant that kind of informed a lot of that we got the results of it. And I guess my question is this the idea that we would try to spend some of this TIF money over the next couple of years on it? Because the lift on the SAW grant and on this plan is huge. And the city hasn't even been doing the right lift on it for the last few years. So my concern is, as we look forward to a potential no TIF income, and we're down to a 2% fee that's meant for managing DDA businesses and nothing else, this doesn't seem like something we'll be investing in beyond those couple of years. Is that kind of the plan? Or let me phrase, investing much in over the next couple of years if there's no TIF money coming in. Is that kind of the eye for it? Maybe a little more in Old Town with the Old Town TIF still existing, but I mean, if that goes, we don't have that wiggle room that we have right now.
Certainly, it provides challenges for long-term investment, but that's really a determination of this body to how they want to spend dollars for stormwater management. I think our task is to figure out, again, kind of like we're doing with the other TIF priorities, what can we do with the money we have left and the time we have left that we know? So that's part of what we're going to have to figure out in collaboration with the city, because this is not a kind of a solo effort. So in tandem with the city, what can we do? That plan that Ed referenced has some kind of small steps we can do, and then there's the much larger effort that you referenced. And I believe even the SAW grant has kind of a void of some of the analysis within the DDA district that perhaps this funding could address as well. So,
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And just to clarify my intent was not to influence spending in the future. It was more of education, because I was not aware of this plan, and it was sort of being used as a reference document to which I was unaware, and I felt a little uneducated. So I just want to make sure that this board had that ability, that plan.
No, and I just wanted to clarify too that, to be fair, I don't think we've talked about it as part of the budget process for a couple of years now. and it did come up this year. I also wanted to say that more to the point at the level of the city commission discussions, there was some comments from some of my board members saying things to the effect of, implying that almost that some of the stormwater initiatives are ours to direct and start, and really because of the infrastructure and because everything except Rotary Square is owned by the city, it's the city's kind of to navigate us. So for example, the farmer's market work that's being done in the stormwater, that's because the city already had the plan to work on that and tear up the lot and repave. We don't really go around and dictate that streets get torn up, or unless it's part of usually larger projects or a project we're working on our own. So I just wanted to clarify that won't suddenly be us pick and choosing throughout the DDA districts to start tearing things up and doing stormwater because we have 2 years left. We still have to coordinate some of these efforts.
So we do have a motion on the floor with a second for budget approval. The motion was made by the mayor, seconded by Mr. McMillan. Any further questions?
I mean, I guess this is just to add quickly to this discussion. I mean, it's just a little agonizing to hear that, something we've known about for quite a while, stormwater, something that is so critically important to our town, being that we're, on the Boardman River. We bring people here. I mean, one of the greatest joys of our town is to be able to spend time at our beaches, and just how important stormwater is to the quality of life here in town. And we're considering these, multi-million-dollar projects, and yet, there's no money for stormwater. And that's just it's incredibly frustrating as you go down and swim in the bay and you watch these pipes that are going right out into the water, right from the roads, right from the parking lots. And as a developer, when you work downtown, you have to do a lot of work on your own property. You have to spend, significant funds in addition to the normal development funds on stormwater. But yet all that work downstream, whatever you do in your building is for naught if the pipes and then the infiltration is not done downstream. And so it's incredibly frustrating to hear that this is like you're saying, the city hasn't been doing the right lift. And and it's just incredibly frustrating. So I hope that we can get over this hump through some education, and then through helping to tee up these projects. And if we don't have the funds, hopefully we can use the funds that we do have to leverage additional funds, whether they're grants or, there's other resources that we should be bringing in. I just have to express how important it is to me.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with the importance. Sorry, what I said was we haven't mentioned that report in 2 years. It's not that we haven't been spending money on stormwater, and it's not that we haven't been doing it. The lift in the SAW grant that was asked of us was $2 million out of the budget every year to get caught up. And that just hasn't been done / hasn't been even viable for the city budget. That's a huge lift out of our budget. Not disagreeing with you that more should be put into it, and that's certainly part of the conversations we should be having. But I just wanted to clarify that we're not spending any money on stormwater, and not that we haven't been working off of, we haven't talked about it at the budget level. I'm sure staff references that all the time when we're picking up different projects. So I didn't want it to make it sound like our staff's over there just ignoring that this all exists. And I'm not saying you were saying that, I just wanted to clarify that point too.
Long ways to go. And
Yeah.
consistently, when I read the feedback from the public when we put these things out, it seems like one of the higher priorities according to the public too.
I mean, it seems to me that frustration with regard to city expenditures on mitigating stormwater is better directed at the city than at the DDA. Our purview is not include, like the mayor said, ripping up streets for stormwater projects. Unless we're doing some other bigger project, like you said. So it's I'm sitting here nodding my head. Yeah, of course we should stop, seagull crap from flowing into the bay, right? And human crap. But this is not the right place to vent your frustration, I think. So.
I guess I think I was on the board in 2018, and I remember the meeting that we actually this was presented to us, and I remember Tim Lodge coming in talking to us, and it went right back to the city. I mean, we were more a sounding board, and so it went back to the city, and that's where it was. So.
And if we had full DDA or TIF funding, we might be in a position to aim a little more firepower at a thing like that. But in the absence of our funding mechanism, I don't think it's fair to indict the DDA for a failure to address the city's stormwater issues.
I don't think it's an indictment. I think we found new projects since 2017, projects that weren't even developed, and this could be a project. I mean, just like Rotary Square could be a project, doing infiltration. I don't know how that's much different. It's just what's below ground in the downtown and what's above ground. And people just don't see and don't seem to make that connection as often to the stuff that's below ground. So I don't know why the
So-
DDA couldn't push forward those projects.
I guess I'd like to maybe, at this point, we have a motion on the floor with regards to budget approval. And so I think the discussions are good discussions, but I think they're sort of long-term discussions on who does what and the funding mechanism. So I would just like to move on with the motion. So we have a motion on the floor for budget approval. I'm not going to repeat the motion for the dollar amounts, but all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, streetscaping snow melt policy.
So this has been in front of us for the last several months, most notably because we've received some inquiries and some requests for reimbursement. And I think it's timely because, frankly, we haven't had to address this in quite some time, so it gave us an opportunity to look back at the policy that we have and where we want to go with it. And just in discussion with this board and then also with city staff, I think it's our recommendation that we take another step back and really think about this, holistically, what's the long-term impact or the long-term policy of streetscaping, but what is the relationship with the approval of the streetscaping with the city? At this point, the DDA is really just a reimbursement tool for this policy, or for the streetscaping and snow melt. The larger discussion, I think, it needs to have with the city in terms of if someone requests it, is it required to do the entire block? And the kind of the idea of ownership of the source of the energy for the snow melt. I think it's a larger discussion. So I don't mean to keep tabling this as we're not going to address it, but I think it would be wise for us to kind of widen the conversation with the city. That said, we probably still will get inquiries and requests for reimbursement for snow melt as we move forward. So as this body kind of considers what the next steps are, we have to keep that in mind, that we'll still probably get requests. We did allocate a small number of dollars in the budget you just approved for snow melt and streetscaping for the next fiscal year. So we just need to be cognizant that as we discuss it, we're still going to get inquiries about it. So.
Any questions? Okay, item C, project priorities.
So I want to talk again about the kind of the three big projects we're working on in Rotary Square. Lauren and I got a kind of sneak preview of the next iteration of the design for Rotary Square. We kind of started broad and we start to kind of narrow it in. And so we looked at three potential designs for Rotary Square, and I think we're narrowing them down to two. And those two will be discussed, reviewed and discussed at a community open house on July 8th at Rotary Square, similar to the last one. So looking forward to having that be made public and having additional conversation on those designs. Just like all the other efforts as part of this project, there'll be an online version that people can submit comments for. And I think actually we've gotten more engagement online than we have in person, which is great. So excited to see that come to the next step.
So do you know, is it going to be, of the four that were, was it four were presented at the last one? Sorry?
Six.
Oh, there were six, I'm sorry. So two out of the six, are there new, like a blended design, or is it
So
just
it's
two
not,
out of
it's
the
not
six?
we just picked two out of the six and went for it. It was like we take a portion of this and one
Okay.
and a portion of this, and so it's kind of a
So
Lego
it'd be new-
set
new
version of
concepts,
those.
new
Yeah,
concept, okay, thank
Exactly, yep. Farmers Market Pavilion. So we've been talking about kind of next steps for the engagement for this project. And to that end, we have been in discussions with Beckett and Rader about essentially kind of picking up where we left off in 2016, 2017 on the conceptual design for the permanent pavilion. We had a preliminary estimate from Beckett and Rader that we asked that we take us a little bit more time to review and have a little bit additional collaboration with the city. And so we did that. So the DDA, the City Engineering Office, and Beck and Rader meant to talk a little bit more about scope of work, because we talked about this project is not only about the Farmers Market Pavilion, but it's also the improvements to Lot B, which include resurfacing the lot and really a pretty big investment in the stormwater parts of that parking lot. So based on those conversations, Beckett and Rader submitted a revised proposal, what you'll see in your packet, that still achieves the things that we have talked about all along, which is getting us to essentially drawings and potentially bidding out for this project, with the idea that next spring, potentially with the reconstruction of Lot B, we could move forward. It's significantly lower than the initial price from Beckett and Rader. Just a couple of other things to think about is, we've talked about, is just this a shed or is this a farmer's market? I think the discussions we've had with Beck and Rader and City Engineering is the holistic scope of this project requires the scope that you see before you. We could certainly just say, here's the shed, we're going to throw it on top of this parking lot, but we're trying to create a public space, and there's lots of nuance with that. And it also connects to the kind of Riverwalks/bridge project that we're doing at the same time. So that connectivity about where those pieces align to create a public space that's more than just a market every Saturday is one reason why I think this is a good step forward. Part of their team, you'll see in the memo, is from Hugh Boyd Architects, which is a nationally recognized firm on farmers markets and how they fit in and integrate with the surrounding community. So having that expertise kind of on their bench is important. And then again, they were involved in kind of the holistic approach to how we were even designing the initial design that we had. So all the considerations that the vendors expressed, that the public expressed through public surveys, were reflected in that design, and so that would carry through to this new iteration. So what you have in your packet is a motion to essentially move forward. My apologies for not adding in the reimbursable expenses, which is in your packet. So the motion, if you so choose to move forward, would be for $97,600 to do that. Again, if this body feels that you want to go for an RFP process, we can still do that. But we need to decide that essentially today, just so we can get moving and tee this up, A, with the Riverwalk project, and B, with the work that the city is already planning to do on that lot in the spring.
One thing I don't see, one thing I don't see in the scope of work was, I know that came up, like renderings.
Mhm.
Is that included? It doesn't say anything about renderings or elevations. It talks about plans and specifications, but, I know I found from Nate Elkins that the last time Beckett and Rader did this, 2017, that at the end, the executive director at the time, Rob Bacigalupi, had asked Nate to produce some renderings to better, help people see what this is gonna be, because I think that's gonna be important, still for how this evolves with this team and people understanding, okay, yeah, we're getting something, like you said, more than a shed. And so I'm just curious, I don't see that anywhere in the scope, and I would expect that if it was something that was included, that we would have something. Most architectural softwares can kind of just produce, it's not as hard as it used to be, so I'm just curious, did that come up?
It certainly is part of task 2. I think we can get those refined. I don't know if it's explicitly stated the way you stated it, but within that site layout, architectural plans, those renderings would be part of that. And I'm full confident that we can get those from Beckett and Rader.
Pete?
I mean, I'm excited. I really like the price of $20,000 cheaper. That's one of my favorite parts of this. But I also like the efficiencies gained by just what is it, sticking with the horse we rode in on, or whatever you say. Yeah, so I'm happy to make that motion. You said it was $96,700?
It's $97,600.
Yeah,
So the motion was on,
page 46 of your PDF.
yes. Right.
So shall I make the motion? I mean, we
Sure, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that the DDA board enter into a contract with Beckett and Rader for a not-to-exceed cost of $97,600 for conceptual design and cost estimation for the Farmers Market Pavilion, using TIF 97 funding, subject to approval as to its form by the DDA executive director and attorney.
I'd like to support that.
So the motion on the floor made by Mr. Kirkwood, seconded by Mr. Joe Braun. Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that if it was said, it wasn't emphasized enough. We've had a lot of questions about whether the farmers even want this, and I just wanted to emphasize that in the packet, there is a
I
signed
was
letter.
going to get to that next. but
Okay,
yeah,
because the motion's on the floor, I just wanted to add that this is something that I thank staff, it was dated end of May, so not out of date at all, that a lot of the vendors that I recognize from walking around the market signed on to that as well. So I think I can see how there's disconnect because this project has gone on for a long time, but I appreciate you all kind of regrouping with the vendors and checking in and putting that in the packet as well for us to have.
Just add on to that, and Mike, you're part of that. The Farmers Market Advisory Committee had reviewed kind of this next step, moving forward, and had their own resolution of support for this effort, which is, attributed to that additional reach out to folks that support the farmers market. The other thing I would just note, just like in all of the three big projects we're working on, the idea is that we continue to work on the schematic to get to a point where we say this is the cost, and we'll then make a decision to say, yes, we're going to move forward before we spend the rest of that schematic. So even within this task 2, there's a point where we say, okay, here's the final cost, guys. We're going to move forward, and we make that decision. So.
I imagine that's a part of their, their scope too,
Yes.
is to help align the cost of the project
Yes.
in the design with
Right.
our budget.
Absolutely.
That we can do it, or even if there's a way that they can phase the project so that if we couldn't get everything we wanted, there's some things
Right.
maybe we could add down the road
Yep.
through additional fundraising. And I guess, my support in this would, be kind of linked to that is, does this 97 get us to, as you said, we're not necessarily going to have to spend it all if we don't go forward, but does it include the things that we need to get the full community support, which I think are those rendered drawings
Yep.
and, and an opportunity? Because I didn't, what is the public engagement that you see through this process? We get those conceptual drawings, and is there public engagement kind of planned for that? Any kind of public engagement to share the drawings and get, support that way? Or is there okay, you can choose this or that in some of the elements of that? Is there going to be that for us and the public?
I think the components that were discussed as the priorities for what the market should include have already been established through that public process, right? So by doing that, we know we needed wider aisles, we know we wanted cover of the vendors and a variety of other things, so that public engagement on what the market needs has been done. We can certainly do outreach in terms of here's how it looks and get some feedback, but I think overall that engagement has already happened, yeah.
Sorry,
I'm sorry,
okay,
I was gonna
please.
add, I appreciate that you were able to get the cost down too and address some of the issues, so thank you for that. And I love your thinking around how do you expand the positioning of this beyond just the farmer's market, but to more of a community space, if you will, and how do you maybe utilize it in other ways? I think
Right.
that's a big idea.
Yep.
So thank you for thinking through that.
Yeah, I was going to thank you, Harry, you took our feedback at the last time we discussed about the cost. I'm very pleased to see this cost reduction, so thank you for that work. I'm also excited the fact that I think this is the same firm that actually designed the Grand Rapids downtown market. And they've also made some reference to the Ann Arbor market. And so it's really opened my eyes in terms of it's not just a shed.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
It's a community place. And I'm very excited that we have a firm who's willing to work with us to make that design. No further questions. We have a motion on the floor. The motion was made by Mr. Kirkwood, was seconded by Mr. Joe Braun. All those in favor? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I assume we were done with the project priority section, Harry?
Just to note that we actually met with Inform Studio this past week. As you recall, they're working on the Riverwalk concept, which is J. Smith Walkway, new pedestrian bridge to the north to connect to the farmers market space. Nice to see the next iteration of design kind of take form with the bridge, and just very good meeting and positive steps towards that design and more to come. So just to highlight that.
Okay, on to the executive director report.
So a couple of things I want to highlight that's happening downtown. The Hannah Park Overlook is done. It's complete 100%. We had to close it briefly, only because we needed one more inspection by the county. That was done, so consider that project completed, and if you've not been over there, it turned out great, and if you sit on those benches, you can actually see the river. It's really cool. So that is done. I do want to mention that we've been working on this larger concept of how are we kind of fixing some of these small things that are just kind of broken. They don't, like, really need a complete street reconstruction, but can we fix some things? And so we've done that. In fact, the last of those was open today at 6 a.m. So we repaved sections of Union Street, north and south of Front, and then portions of Cass. That was done in collaboration with the city. So out of that one bucket of infrastructure funds that we have under TIF, that was used $27,500 to redo those 2 streets. That is now complete. We are looking, and this is described in your packet, at a handful of other potential infrastructure repairs. On page 57 of your packet, we talk about alley approaches, mid-block crosswalk, sidewalk repairs, and we actually put those out to bid with the city. And just like everything, it came back expensive. So essentially, we had 3 responses to that RFP, and costs fluctuate pretty dramatically depending on which contractor we work with. But needless to say, the cost that we receive for each of those 4 items, so the State Street and Park Street sidewalk, Cass Street approach, which is essentially the alley on Cass between Front and and State, Cass Street mid-block crosswalk, which if you haven't seen that, it's in pretty dire shape, and then the kind of sidewalk replacement at Lake and Cass were significantly more than we had budgeted for. So I think we can probably do in this fiscal year with the budget that we've allocated one of those projects. But in talking with city engineering, I think it just tees us up to make those investments the next fiscal year. So with the money that we have, I think we're going to move forward with the sidewalk, essentially replacement of State Street and Park Street intersection. The corner, it's the northeast corner. It's in pretty bad shape, and actually you can tell it's been Band-Aid a couple times over, and so we're going to replace that entire sidewalk, and even those costs at the lowest bid we have is just over $41,000. So these are just, everything is more expensive than we anticipated. So with that in mind, we're going to move forward with that, and then we have obviously then some really good projects identified to kick off for next fiscal year. Because of the timing with the bidding of the actual work and then how it's then approved through the city system, that sidewalk infrastructure wouldn't get improved to the fall, but we agreed to move forward, and that will be the project that we have. So that is the kind of the big thing with kind of that work that we've been doing. Any questions associated with that? Okay.
I just want to make a comment. So for folks who don't remember, when we set the budget for this fiscal year for 2024, 2025, we took in, during that process, we took in community input saying that they thought that there may be some areas downtown that we could better maintain. And so was it $75,000 for the TIF 97? I think that was, or either 60 or 75.
65.
$65,000. So that number, really, I'll call it a placeholder. I mean, we didn't have plans in place. We didn't have an engineering estimate. We just said, okay, we're going to allocate $65,000 for this. So my first comment was, I think the work that the city has done for us and the street paving for $27,000 is a great deal. The other comment is we really didn't know what the costs of these other improvements were going to be. So I think, as we're learning as we go forward here, we've learned about the cost of the 8th Street intersections. We now know what it's going to cost for sidewalk repair. I think, as a board, when we do budgeting next year, we're going to be a little bit more attuned to the fact that of some of the infrastructure costs and how we plan for that. So I just want to make that comment because I don't feel, obviously I wish they weren't that high, but I don't feel like we did anything wrong, right? It's nothing, it's just a matter of, it's a learning process, and we'll get better at budgeting as we go on.
Two things just to add to that aren't necessarily fixes of crumbling infrastructure, but additions to. So we've had several discussions with city engineering and TART trails about better connections from the TART trail, the new extension of the TART trail into downtown, and two specific intersections. One is East Front Street. So if you cross at the new intersection at East Front Street and you bike across, there really is no landing zone to get in the bike lane. And so we're working with city engineering to actually build a essentially bike ramp from the sidewalk into the bike path on the street, the bike lane. So I anticipate that that could be done still this year, and maybe that's the city DDA cost share that would be out of this kind of bucket of funds. We're still talking about that. The other is the transition between the TART trail and downtown on Park Street is a little vague. It's because it's all sidewalk, and we're not supposed to ride bikes on sidewalks. So we've been working with city engineering and also Progressive, who helped us do the East Front Street design, about ways that we can better mark that transition between, again, the TART trail and Front Street along Park. Basically, it's kind of painting certain directional arrows and just making it clear that you're not supposed to use the sidewalk, you're supposed to go and transition to the street and get to Front Street. So while those aren't essentially fixing what's broken, they're add-on infrastructure pieces that would again fall out of this bucket. So.
And Harry, I just wanted to take a second, because we are two different boards, of letting everybody know too that for now, for this year, we've started that markings like bike lanes, not lines, passing lines and solid yellows, have started coming under the city. And so that does make us a little bit more flexible for adding things like that, for pointing out share rows and bike lanes, so that if we find projects like this, and even if we do something in a month from now after the painting's been done, we actually have the equipment and the tools to do that as the city now. We aren't just beholden to the contractor to do everything that comes in once a year, usually right before Cherry Festival, and that's as soon as we usually see them. So I just wanted to share that with this board in case that hadn't disseminated down. That was something that the city manager implemented a few weeks ago. So,
kind of moving through the packet, I just wanted to alert your attention to the potential zoning changes in Old Town. So this past week, the Planning Commission held their public hearing on essentially upzoning the 2 blocks between 6th and 8th on Union Street to C4A, which actually doesn't change a whole lot, actually. Doesn't change the building height. It changes a requirement that if you did go to the full max at 45 feet, the 3rd floor had to be residential, and that's essentially not part of this new piece. But this is something that's actually the DDA and the city initiated back in, or at least conversation back in 21 and 22. And then for a variety of reasons, it just kind of stalled. But we were approached by a property owner looking to upzone his lot, and that provided an opportunity for the Planning Commission to look at the entire 2 blocks. So that was essentially, the Planning Commission agreed to move that on to the City Commission for a formal approval. I don't know when that will come before the City Commission, but relatively soon. And so I just want to make sure you guys are aware that that change is happening. There was discussion about taking it 1 more block south, because actually the DDA district goes to 9th Street. At this point, we're just focusing on the 2 between 6th and 8th, and that last block we can talk about at a later time. The last part I want to talk about is the TIF implementation policy and next steps. So the city is still in the process of reviewing and considering and then developing the implementation policy based off the November election with the charter amendment change. What I do think this does, and looking forward, is provide us an opportunity to think about our moving downtown forward TIF plan. What are the next steps for that? Are there things that we want to revisit, conversations that we still want to have? And looking at the larger context of how, again, the DDA in downtown falls within the city context of what they're doing. So to that end, I have included, and I'll ask Amy to provide any other context, the strategic action plan that the city has essentially recently adopted that is really the fence post by which the city will be working on projects, prioritizing infrastructure decisions, and a variety of other things. It seems to me that we want to be, in lockstep as much as we can with the city commission. So I've included it in the packet only as kind of a homework assignment to talk about the things that we're doing, the priorities that we've established, the work that we're doing. Where does it fall within the items that you see? Essentially, page 96 of your packet is where I think the real meat and bones of this strategic plan talks about. It's got its 6 pillars of strategic growth, and if you look at each one of those strategic pillars, as you go at page 97 and further on, there are specific items that have been identified by stakeholders in the community as things to address. But they all involve a lot of downtown and DDA activity. So I think we have an opportunity to think about how do we align with this document, which is really the expression of the goals of the city, and how can we kind of have that discussion moving forward. So I want to make that as a kind of a homework assignment / preview to what I'm hoping will be a series of discussions by this board about how we want to address the Moving Downtown Forward plan moving forward. So I know it's kind of vague in terms of what those next steps are, but I kind of want to tee up that conversation.
Yeah, and just to give everybody a quick heads up, if it helps with the homework assignment, as it were, the July, I gotta remember dates now, 14th study session is slated right now to be a look at, for the city commission, sorry, is slated to be a look at the budget we just passed through the lens of the strategic plan or vice versa, and see where we have gaps and where we're aligning and how that matches up. The budget is the budget, and, but it might allow us to make some amendments and such over the next year as we're kind of looking at those hand in hand. It was a pretty big tall order, so staff I think is we have a very good staff. I'm sure they'll have the majority, if not all of it done, but there might be still some conversations on the city commission end too that go beyond that, but really I believe that's the biggest thing, if not the only thing slated for that study session. So if you have a chance as you're looking at it through this lens and want to understand more where the commissioners might be at with some of this, that'll be a good one to either watch or step into or watch after it's done. So just wanted to give the heads up.
Okay, any more questions for Harry? Staff reports. Lauren?
I have to find my memo somewhere in this packet. Have a page number? 120. Okay, so the Arts Commission met on Wednesday of this week. So I have just one update that's not on this memo, but we'll go through the memo first. The Arts Commission successfully advocated for a $30,000 increase to its annual budget, which was approved by the City Commission on June 2nd. This effort was very much spearheaded by Arts Commissioner Caitlin Early and City Commissioner Heather Shaw. They worked together, presented at the City Commission meeting to talk about the need for more investment in public arts. For some background, the Arts Commission has typically since its beginning of time, has received $30,000 a year. If you know anything about public art, that's not a lot of money. And so for advocating for a $30,000 increase, they doubled their budget. So that is a huge win for the Arts Commission. The inaugural mural festival update, 6 artists and mural sites have been selected to participate in the mural festival, and their contracts are pending right now. So we have some that are signed, some that are going back and forth with questions with the city attorney. But we're moving along in the contract process and expect them to be completed or all executed by mid-July. So all of the contracts should be executed by our July meeting. The Arts Commission focus for the next month is finalizing the programming details for the festival. So tentative plans for the festival programming include a panel discussion with the muralists, a walking tour of the completed murals, and some family programming partnered with the Traverse City Area District Libraries. So very exciting stuff happening with the programming partnerships. The commission also intends to roll out the festival's communication and advertising in July as well. So next month we should see a lot more visual sort of marketing of the mural festival.
And just a question, that's along 8th Street? Is that the
Yes.
target area?
Yep, that's
Between Boardman and Railroad, or?
It goes from, so the westmost location is Oriana 10th Street. Again, the contracts are pending, but these are all coming.
Sure,
I
right.
feel confident in being able to say that the locations are Oriana 10th Street, and then the furthest east one is, I don't know, I'm blanking on it right now. The coffee shop,
Oh,
yes.
so,
Okay.
Woodmere.
Yes, yep,
Okay.
so that's sort of the extent there. The filling station is also one of the locations, so it all sort of works together with sort of encouraging people to walk along the 8th Street corridor, pop into the businesses there. We've got the entire North Boardman Creative Initiative, which the Mural Festival is part of, has been in partnership with the North Boardman Business District, so all of the business owners have been providing input on what they would like to see. This all kind of came out of the Healthy 8th Street study. So there's a long-running history of where this came out of, and the business owners are extremely excited and happy to participate and volunteer how they can. So we're really looking forward and have enjoyed so far working with the business owners in the 8th Street corridor. Last thing on the memo, the rotating art exhibit. So the Arts Commission approved a new art exhibit to replace the damaged Spirit of the Forest display on the Boardman Lake Trail. Steve and Dorota Coy, who were the artists who created the Spirit of the Forest sculptures, were selected to replace their exhibit with an alternative piece. The Coys will be up here in July to install the piece. So hopefully, again, by our July meeting, I will have something to show you on the trail. The last thing that is an update since between when this memo was written and today, because they met on Wednesday, they did approve a motion to pursue the artistic bench on the Tart Trail. So I don't know if you remember, this project kind of trailed off, no pun intended, from where it left off in the fall, because it was supposed to be part of the Bayfront Tart extension project. At the time, the Arts Commission they had found an artist that they wanted to work with to create an artistic bench to be on that section of the extended trail at Sunset Park. And the artist unfortunately had to drop out, and they were not able to find a replacement in time for the bench to be put there by the time the project was completed. So they've now found an artist that they would like to work with, and they are going to be working with the city and Parks and Recreation Department to install that bench sometime this summer, hopefully. So update on that soon.
Any questions? Great.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to the Mural Festival. Sarah?
Hello. Updates on our downtown events. We just wrapped up on the 6th of June, the Live After 5 spring entertainment or music series. I think we're encouraged to do this again next year. We got a lot of positive feedback from people who attended, and all of the musicians said, what else can I do? When can I do it? I want to come back. And they said that they would love to play throughout the summer. So we'll look into that for next year. We had a good turnout, even though we had super windy days and chilly days. I think everyone just wanted to get outside because we had such a long winter. Horizon Books was one of our hosts, and they told us that they saw increased sales for every event that they had, which isn't a huge surprise, but it's good to hear nonetheless. Toasted Downtown shortly followed, actually it was June 5th, it was the day before the last Live After 5. We had a lot of events kind of in a row. So Toasted Downtown had about 150 people come out. Some of you here were attendees or even volunteers, maybe doing some slot machine action. That was the hit of the human slot machine was the hit of the event. So we had guests, volunteers, sponsors, partners to come out and say overwhelmingly that they really enjoyed this updated format of a more casual setting with the focus on connection and community, and would be encouraged to come again if we continued in that theme. So that was over 3/4 of our survey that we just sent out. We did award the former Opera House Executive Director, Di Barabu, with the Lyle DeYoung Award. And then we had a slider and cocktail showdown. Blue Tractor won Best Slider, and American Spoon actually won for the mocktail. We had about $5,000 in ticket sales, 3,900 in fundraising efforts, and so I'm still looking at finalizing all the expenses, but we'll have a few $1,000s that we raised from that event. And as I mentioned, we have a survey out there with overwhelmingly positive feedback. We finished it's been 7 events in 7 weeks, essentially. We just finished the Old Town Arts Fair on Saturday, and we saw a 33% increase in foot traffic. Dwell time also increased slightly. We're tapping into our Placer AI data to track all of this information. And then we'll get a survey out ASAP. We have on the event, or on the heels of this event, the National Cherry Festival Arts and Crafts Fair that's coming up next Sunday. So packets just actually got out with all the maps, and volunteers actually are confirmed for every slot. So that little bullet that says we're short, thank you to Jack, our intern, for helping me get those volunteers. And for anybody who's listening, if you're one of those, you are very much appreciated. Downtown Art Fair will follow in September. We do actually have a few openings. We've had some late stage cancellations. So we'll be doing some more outreach. We are also putting together a community mural, not in partnership with, but trying to provide some supplemental programming for the Mural Fest. So I'm going to be working with Crooked Tree Art Center to find a muralist to help us put that together. And I think we have a location downtown. I don't want to jinx it by saying what it is yet. And we also know that Porch Fest is going on that Sunday. So it's going to be a whole weekend full of creativity and the arts culture. Street Sale and Friday Night Live are coming up in August, which we're basically in August, everybody. We have August 1st featuring an all-American dance party at the corner of Cass and Front in that intersection. That's going to be a family-friendly dance party with stage and all these different genres that are played in 2 to 3 song categories that change out throughout the night. We'll have dancers. We have other dancers who are interested in bringing their groups together to participate. And then on the 8th, we'll have a 90s country revival, like a super group, I guess, of these different bandmates who've come together, if anyone knows Little Dipper. And then we'll have a professional line dance instructor and her team doing line dancing and instruction. Street Sale application will go live soon. Again, you must be a member to participate in that event. And then, last but not least, we have new DTCA board members, Katie Asher from Slip Vintage, Andre Buchel from Buchel's Kitchen and Cocktails, and Hunter Eagle from Mammoth Distilling. So we're excited to introduce them to the DTCA board next month at our meeting on the 10th, where we'll also elect all of our executive members. And we are saying goodbye to 2 of our very valued members in Dawn Gildersleeve and Libby Hogan. That is all.
I have a quick question, and this is, I appreciate the feedback from Horizon Books, but as we're doing more of these things, and as I worked retail downtown for many years, though it's been several years now, I know that sometimes like Friday Night Lives and things like that brought things out on the street didn't necessarily translate well to the actual businesses getting foot traffic and sales. So not saying, I'm against all this, but as we're doing these things, are we sending out periodic surveys after each event of how did the Live After 5 work for you? Did you see an increase, da-da-da? Because I would be interested in the non-host businesses' feedback on some of these things, too, as we continue to do more and more of these kind of outside-based, because I recognize, I'm not against it, I recognize there's a balance between drawing people downtown, but also, what's going on with the merchants on those nights.
And we also have different categories of events, too. We have categories that feature community connection and engagement, or it's about retail sales, or it's about fundraising for the DTCA itself. So we have a balance between all of our events. Some of these events touch one goal, and some touch multiple. But for every event, I do send out surveys.
Great.
I haven't gotten to the Live After 5. Capacity has not allowed for it yet.
No,
However,
7 weeks with 7 events. I'm not asking for data today. I'm
thank
just
you.
throwing it out there that I'm just be curious at some point.
No, I want that information too, because I think it's also important for retailers to understand if we're bringing this downtown, if we need to look at hours that you're open as well. Horizon is open late, and they're open during all of the entertainment, so I would expect that, yes, they do see a positive boost from this. But we maybe need to take a look and see what the retail opportunities are for guests who are down there from 5 to 8 p.m. for this event.
Great.
I have a question, but I don't really want to go into great detail, but the Placer AI data that you have, so is that a sensor-based, some sort of sensor that,
It's based on your phone, so,
okay.
and it's accurate, I think between 80 and 90% accuracy, if I'm remembering correctly.
So is that, this data collected by the DTCA?
The DDA,
The DDA is collecting this data?
we're
So, we purchased this software system this past year because it allows us to track the things that you've been asking for our events, but it also has the capacity to show us on some of these projects we're working on. So, for example, we can start to track on a week-to-week basis, on a year-to-year basis, how many people are at the farmer's market on a given Saturday. So, allows us to track some of that, and it just kind of also shows us what are some of the trends that we're seeing in downtown in terms of foot traffic, retail sales. Are they weather dependent? A variety of things that really get us a kind of a better sense of what's happening downtown.
I see some more work in your future here, Harry.
And just because I know people always ask whenever we talk about IA or AI or tracking, there's no specific data collected and/or it's not retained as far as anything personal that anybody might have to worry about, right?
no.
Yeah, and
Absolutely
I
not.
know this because I know that we don't do that, but if we don't say it, sometimes I think that's what gets out there, so.
There is no PII in any of the data that we collect.
Okay.
Which is personally identifiable
Thank you,
information.
that's
Yes,
thank you.
I'm sorry. I get in acronyms sometimes. But it is very cool because you can see where the foot traffic is with the heat maps. So it helped me for Live After 5, for example, decide where to put the musicians based on where people congregate. So it's super helpful for that planning
Right.
purposes too.
What is the boundary that we're talking about in terms of
You get to
visits?
create it.
No, but in this particular data, what
For
is the-
Live After 5,
Yeah, that's
that
the
was
chart we have.
between Park and Union. It's kind of like the Friday Night Live on Front Street. It's kind of like the Friday Night Live. But we actually just emailed Jack to ask him to help me get some, to see how small we can get with the property around the Horizon and the J. Smith Walkway, just to see what that traffic looked like as well around the entertainment itself.
So am I right to say that only on Memorial Weekend did we have higher year-on-year visits than we had in previous years? Is that what I'm seeing? That it's over 100%?
Well, they're all increases.
Up
Those
by
are up, yeah,
17%,
sorry.
Not just,
Yeah.
okay, because that's not necessarily clear. Okay, so on Memorial Weekend, we're over double, more than double what we saw the year before.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right?
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Great
Sarah.
work.
So we have a receive and file, which you can review at your leisure. Last, we have a public comment opportunity. Anyone wish to make a public comment? Please state your name, address, and limit your comment to 3 minutes.
Yes, Richard Robbins, live at 720 Center Place, or city resident, but I'm here representing the Grand Traverse Safe Streets Alliance, which we call the GTSSA. Thank you for the time. The GTSSA would like the DDA to address or answer the following ideas or requests. Number one, the GTSSA is looking for a plan from the DDA in the city to get cyclists, runners, and disabled individuals safe access from the TART Trail of Grandview Parkway into the city. I'd like to understand what that process is. How do we have those? Number two, if we are looking for true traffic calming on State Street, we have a low-cost approach to turn the traffic lights at Union Street and State and Cass and State to four-way flashing red. GTSSA would like the DDA and the city staff to act on this as a pilot. It's a very low-cost pilot, guys. It doesn't cost anything to turn those to flashing red, and then we have stop signs like we have on other parts of the city. As opposed to worrying about all the traffic counts, we can actually do that with just creating stop signs and then do our analysis. Number three, the GTSSA would like to see a plan to provide for safe multimodal transportation corridors in and out of the downtown area. This is consistent with other DDA actions as best practices being pursued nationwide and specifically exemplified in Michigan cities such as Holland and Ann Arbor. And number 4, the GTSSA would like the DDA to communicate to the City Commission and staff that the lack of specific dates and approach to pavement marking detailed in today's Bay Brief, it does not provide the safety needed for cyclists in the downtown area, and given the lack of pavement marking for cyclists and the disabled at intersections with no pedestrian markings, the DDA is very concerned and wants a more definitive and immediate action. There were no specific dates in that Bay Brief, and we're looking for action on this because this is a safety issue, and the DDA should be very concerned about this relative to those patrons that come down and patronize the businesses. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comment from the board? Okay, thank you for your time. Meeting's adjourned.
Great.